You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
No one knew anything about this. This was a regulation that has been thrown in, I think, at the last minute. Is each employer going to have to do an interview with each of the of his or her employees? I mean, it's ludicrous.
That's Andrew Cadell from earlier this afternoon. He's president of the Task Force on Linguistic Policy. I was asking Jim about this sudden news. Again, it came out of nowhere. He basically said, we don't know where this came from either. Never mind 25 to 49 employees. It's now 5 to 49 employees, and you will have to prove somehow to the government that those employees
can function in French.
And that means everything from in meetings to sharing documents to you name it. No one saw this coming, Jim. What do you think's going on here?
Well, surprise. Listen, I heard you talking to Mr. Cadell, and I heard you, because I know that's how we do the show. You were quoting at length from Andy Riga's story, which is in the Gazette, and gives you the details on this. I have to tell you, it's kind of, face it, it's going to be Bill 96 week here on CJAD, and there'll be all kinds of marvelous things to talk about. Today it was like a good cop, bad cop kind of a thing. We had Francophone Quebec, which long sought after, one-stop shopping. Anyone who wants to learn how to speak French, but I think is a really good way to curtail the decline of French. If you teach people how to speak French, well, you just go to this website and Bob's your uncle. Although, and I'm kind of optimistic because you notice, guys, it's called Francophone Quebec, and it doesn't have the word click in it, as opposed to click Santé or click SAAQ.
Bonus.
That said, I have a sneaking suspicion that this website is not going to click. I think not that far from now, we're going to be talking about how there was too much traffic, not enough traffic, people don't know how to use it, you can't get a return on it. But this other thing, this story that Andy Riga has at MontrealGazette.com, which is going through the roof, we've had more views on this story than we actually have readers. But the reason for that is, you're quite right. It came out of the blue. How are employers, how are business owners supposed to deal with this? First of all, how do they even know they're going to tell the truth? Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this I think really deserves far more attention than it's getting, is that you don't just have to do this inventory of whether you're French enough. The results of your survey are then published online for public viewing. Now, I would say how can I put it? A neutral observer, informed of the history of Quebec language politics, might perceive this as a not so mild form of intimidation, because you're basically saying, if you're honest, and depends how your numbers are, you might wind up not in the pillory, but either way, everyone gets listed there. I mean, this to me is a perfect example of the pettiness, the absolute ruthless pettiness that has smeared language politics in this province for 50 years. It's completely ridiculous. It is clearly a provocation. It is clearly aimed at Montreal. The idea, although it's interesting because when you're talking to Mr. Cadell, you mentioned, I'm at Port-Joli and everyone speaks French and everything. Listen, Quebec City area, a lot of tourism, and you know what? A lot of part-timers, whatever. Can all of those boutiques on the Grand Allée or the restaurants, can they all hold a conversation in French? Or is this particular regulation got a big pair of crosshairs on it and it's aimed directly at Montreal? Because that's what I think this is exactly. It is a sort of unexpected twist, as in a twist of a knife for Bill 96. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me that when there's blowback on this, it's not just going to come from Anglophones, okay? And I think what's going to slowly dawn on a lot of people, this isn't a story about Anglophones anymore. This is a story about a government that was elected to office by a minority of Quebecers, essentially trying to ensure the linguistic purity of people who began their own business. People named Tremblay, people named Castonguay, people named Côté, who are now being said, you have to prove that your efforts are French enough for us. And as Mr. Cadell suggested, they may face fines, they may face some kind of sanction, Why would Francois Legault do something as breathtakingly stupid as pick a fight with the people who, let's face it, make this economy go? We always focus on the big players, on the corporations. It's small and medium business that keeps Quebec's head above water. Small and medium business right now that are dying to get employees because of the labor shortage. And here comes Francois Legault, the so-called friend to business, the head of a government of the economy, turning around saying, by the way, we need to do a spot check to make sure that your workforce isn't too polluted with people who are unable to sort of like, quote Molière. Absolutely low-end, lowbrow, and utterly expected from this government.
So you're suggesting when people sort of get an idea of what this is and what it's going to mean, it's not, again, when I first saw this, Jim, and I thought, oh, this is the 25 to 49 employee thing. That's what the government said they're going to sort of... It's not. It's businesses with as few as 5 employees. Yeah.
Because as we all know, mom and pop are the biggest threats to French culture and language in Quebec, right? It's the small businesses that are dragging us all down. This is why this, and do I expect down the road to have the typical 101 excuse? Oh, well, it was ill thought out. It was, some overzealous bureaucrats, blah, 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 blah. We shouldn't have done it. I think they will have to back down on this because I don't see Quebec's already beleaguered business class, most of which speaks French, turning around and welcoming this with open arms.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was wondering. I was like, why, if this was a move, you would think that they would be like proud of it, saying, look, we're getting even tougher, we're buckling down. But so they were worried about backlash, tried to sneak it through. There's still going to be backlash, and now they'll have to dial it back.
I would presume so, because this law, as far as I know, and who knows, maybe there'll be another surprise tomorrow that it only applies to businesses that are not owned by francophones, although I don't think they get away with that. This applies to every small and medium-sized business in Quebec, and I'm sorry, most of them are owned by Quebec francophones, many of them, indeed by the francophones de souche, who quite frankly have even less patience with provincial government garbage like this than their Anglophone counterparts.
Right.
So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. And it'll be interesting to see how Francois Legault, veteran businessman, can turn around and portray this real cheap shot legislation as being anything other than a pound of raw meat being handed over to his chorus of supporters and columnists over at the Bloc Québécois.
Especially when people who vote for him are just desperate for workers.
Well, yeah, but listen, that's not his concern, okay? The optic that they have is, and believe me, the regions are not exactly flourishing under the reign of Francois Legault, and yet it was the regions that put him there. But they figure, you know what? We're in for 3 years. We can do whatever we want. We don't have to think this stuff out. We have people who do that for us, apparently. But this one here, I tell you, when I saw Andy's story today, I did a double take, and I don't usually do double take over language stories anymore. But the fact of the matter is, this is even for an ex-pay-kissed minister, this is beyond the pale.
I'm wondering, though, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I saw a story over the weekend where Pierre Fitzgibbon kind of, proudly looking back and saying, hey, do you see the numbers for investment in Quebec? It's over $6 billion. It's an all brand new record. So, the government on the one hand can tout all this economic development and all this money coming in here and kind of go ahead and do whatever they want to do as far as language goes. It doesn't seem to be making a difference.
Well, perhaps the people who invested some of those $6 billion will have the same reaction when someone tells them, surprise, you got to give us an inventory of all your staff.
Yeah.
Because believe me, if they turn around and they start making exemptions, as they are wont to do for the big economic players in Quebec, you are going to see a volcano erupt from the Gaspé right to the Outaouais. There's enough on the plate of Quebec businesses which had to deal with the pandemic, which had to deal with all the garbage that has come down the pike over the last 3 years, and now they have this cupcake dropped in their lap. I'm sorry. I think they may have gone too far.
James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.
Adama.